Good day. We present to your attention a fairy tale about Tsar Sultan.
The Tale of Tsar Saltan, Part 1, The Three Maidens and the Hidden Promise. Long ago, in a distant kingdom by the cold and restless sea, there lived a mighty ruler, Tsar Saltan, beloved by his people and feared by his foes. His palace stood upon high marble terraces, gleaming white beneath the sun and crowned with golden domes that shone like fire at dawn. Yet for all his wealth and power, the Tsar was lonely. He had no wife to share his heart, no son to inherit his throne. One quiet evening, weary from the pomp of his court, the Tsar wandered beyond the palace gates. The night was still and mild. The scent of wildflowers drifted through the air, and the stars trembled upon the black waters of the sea. From a low wooden cottage nearby, he heard the faint hum of women's voices. Drawn by curiosity, the Tsar came close and peered through a small window, where he saw three maidens spinning flax by candlelight. The eldest maiden, fair but proud, spoke first as her spindle whirred. Open quote. "Were I the Tsar's bride," said she, "I would bake such wondrous feasts that the whole realm would marvel. My pies would melt in the mouth, my mead would gladden every heart. No guest would leave my table unsatisfied." Close quote. The second maiden, dark-haired and thoughtful, replied with a shy smile. Open quote. "Were I to wed the Tsar, I would weave for him a cloth of gold so fine and radiant that sunlight itself would envy its glow. The walls of his palace would be draped in my work, and no weaver in the world could match my skill." Close quote. Then spoke the youngest, gentle and quiet, with eyes like clear water. Open quote. "If the Tsar took me to wife," she whispered, "I would bear him a son, brave, handsome, and wise, who would bring glory to his father's name and joy to all Russes." Close quote. As these words left her lips, a soft wind stirred the candle flame, and the Tsar himself stepped into the doorway. The maidens froze in wonder, for before them stood their sovereign, tall and bright in his traveling cloak. "Good evening, maidens fair," said the Tsar kindly. "I have heard each of your words. Let them be weighed in my heart. You, eldest, shall be my royal cook, for your hands promise delight to every feast. You, second, shall be my royal weaver, for gold and silk shall flow beneath your fingers. But you, youngest and purest of speech, you shall be my Tsaritsa, my queen, and by God's blessing, mother to my heir." At this, the sisters bowed low, their hearts trembling, one with pride, one with envy, and one with awe. Within a fortnight, the Tsar's will was done. Bells rang across the kingdom. From town to town spread the cry. Open quote. "Tsar Saltan has taken a bride." Close quote. Festivities filled the land. The wedding feast lasted 3 days and 3 nights. The youngest maiden, now Tsaritsa, was robed in silver and crowned with pearls. Beside her sat Sultan, radiant and content, his eyes alight with joy. Yet the elder sisters, though raised to honor in the palace, felt bitterness coil within their hearts. "Why," whispered the weaver to the cook, "should our little sister sit upon the throne while we bow and serve?" And jealousy, once kindled, burns like hidden fire. Months passed. The Tsaritsa grew gentle with child, and the Tsar, summoned to distant war, left his new bride under the care of her sisters and his old nurse, Babarika, a cunning woman, wise in herbs and darker arts. Before departing, the Tsar embraced his wife tenderly and said, open quote, "Fear not, my beloved. Though duty calls me afar, my heart remains with you. Send word the moment our child is born, and I shall hasten home." Close quote. When at last the time came, a son was born, a radiant infant with eyes like morning skies. Bells pealed across the land again, for the heir of Tsar Saltan had come into the world. But envy is sharper than any sword. The sisters and Babarika, feigning joy, sent a messenger to the Tsar. Yet before the letter could be sealed, the old nurse whispered her poisonous counsel. Open quote, "Why should he return so soon? Better that he believe his queen has brought him shame. Then the throne will waver, and perhaps fall into hands more worthy." Close quote. Thus, in the dead of night, They took the letter and changed its words. Where the Tsaritsa had written, "A son is born to thee, O Tsar," they made it read, "Thy Tsaritsa has borne thee a monster, neither beast nor man." The messenger rode swiftly to the Tsar's camp, bearing this cruel deceit. When Sultan read the twisted message, his heart froze with grief. Yet he was a wise ruler, slow to wrath, and he wrote back, open quote, "Let my wife and child be kept safe and cared for until my return." Close quote. But again, the false-hearted women tampered with the letter. By dawn, the Tsar's command had become a sentence of doom: cast the Tsaritsa and her newborn son into the sea. At daybreak, the false edict was obeyed. The Tsaritsa, pale but proud, clasped her child to her breast. Without tears or pleas, she was placed with him into a barrel and set adrift upon the waves. The sisters stood upon the shore, watching the surf carry their secret away. The sea roared and moaned. Gulls wheeled above as the barrel rocked upon the tide. For days and nights it drifted, over calm and storm, beneath sun and moon, until at last the weary queen whispered a prayer. Open quote. "O Lord, who watches all upon the waters, if it be thy will, deliver us." Close quote. And lo, a mighty wave lifted the barrel high and cast it upon a lonely shore. On Part 2, The Island of Wonders. When dawn at last broke over the boundless sea, the barrel that bore the Tsaritsa and her son lay motionless upon a narrow beach. The tide had fallen back, leaving silver foam upon the sand. The young mother, weak yet alive, lifted the lid with trembling hands and felt the breath of freedom upon her face. Beside her, the infant stirred and cried softly, the first cry of life under open heaven. "Blessed be the Almighty," she whispered, pressing her lips to the child's brow. "We are not lost. My little prince, the sea itself has brought us to safety." She stepped from the barrel, her garments heavy with salt, and gazed around. The land stretched green and wild before her eyes, tall pines rising to the sky, meadows scattered with flowers, and far away the glimmer of streams. It seemed no human foot had ever trod this shore. Birds sang fearlessly in the branches, and the air was clear as crystal. There upon the sand she knelt and gave thanks to God. Then she built a little shelter from driftwood and reeds, and there she laid her child. The Tsaritsa named him Prince Guidon, for she felt in her heart that he was born to be guided by heaven through all perils. Days passed into weeks. The Tsaritsa gathered berries, caught fish in the shallows, and kindled fire with stones. The boy grew swiftly, strong and beautiful. His hair shone like gold in the sun. His eyes were bright with the reflection of the sea. No sorrow seemed to cling to him. He laughed at the waves and called the gulls his playmates. When he was old enough to understand, his mother told him little by little of their fate, how envy had driven them from the palace, how his father knew nothing of their suffering. The boy listened gravely and said, open quote, "Then, mother, I shall grow strong, and when the time comes, I shall find my father and reveal the truth. He will rejoice to know you are innocent." Close quote. The Tsaritsa smiled sadly, for her heart dared not hope so far ahead. Yet the years went by, and the child became a youth, tall, brave, and wise beyond his age. He hunted in the forests, built huts and boats, and learned the voices of wind and water as though nature itself were his tutor. One day, as he walked along the shore, Guidon heard a strange cry from the waves. Looking closer, he saw a swan entangled in a fisherman's net that had drifted near the island. The great white bird beat its wings in vain. The cords tightened cruelly around its breast. Without hesitation, the prince sprang into the surf, cut the knots, and set the creature free. The swan spread its wings and circled above him, then descended and spoke in a voice clear as music. Open quote, "Kind youth, thou hast saved my life. Not every mortal would risk himself for a bird in distress. Know that I am not what I seem. I am the enchanted daughter of the sea czar, caught by evil spells. Thou hast broken one chain of my bondage, and for this I shall be thy friend till death." Close quote. Guidon bowed deeply, amazed. "Gracious swan," said he, "I sought no reward, but if thou art indeed a princess of the deep, may heaven bless thee and set thee free." The swan smiled with gentle light in her eyes. "Thou art noble and true. Return home now. When thou needest aid, call upon me by the shore, and I shall come." From that hour, strange blessings came upon the island. The sea grew rich with fish, trees bore fruit in plenty, and clear springs bubbled where none had been before. The Tsaritsa marveled and gave thanks, but her son only smiled, for he knew the hand of the swan was near. Still, Prince Guidon's heart longed for knowledge of the world beyond his island. "Mother," he said one evening as the sunset glowed crimson over the sea, "I wish to see my father's realm, to learn how men live, how ships are built, how justice is done." The Tsaritsa sighed. "My son, the sea that bore us here may not bear us hence. We are bound by fate to this lonely shore." Guidon walked down to the water's edge and called, open quote, "O swan, fair daughter of the deep, I would behold the land of men and see my father's kingdom. Canst thou aid me?" Close quote. From the mist arose the shining bird. "Thy wish is noble," said she, "and I shall grant it. Trust me, but speak no word till the time is ripe." Then she beat her wings thrice upon the water, and lo, a mighty ship appeared, fashioned of living wood, its sails white as clouds. "Enter," said the swan. "This vessel shall bear thee unseen, for the winds obey my song." Guidon leapt aboard, and the ship glided forth, swift as thought. Waves parted before its prow, and soon the shores of a vast kingdom came into view, towers and domes glittering in the sun. The prince marveled, for he had reached the land of Tsar Saltan. In the harbor he saw merchants, sailors, and noblemen. He passed among them unseen, for a mist veiled him by the swan's enchantment. Thus he walked through the bustling city until he came to the royal court. There, amid banners and guards, he beheld his father, older now, yet noble as ever. The Tsar sat in judgment, speaking wisely to his people. Guidon's heart swelled with love and sorrow, but he dared not reveal himself. Instead, he listened to the talk of three travelers who stood nearby, and to his wonder, he heard them speak of his own island. "Marvel upon marvel," said one. "In the far sea lies an island unknown to maps, where golden fields grow without plow or seed. Fish leap into the nets, and springs of crystal flow beneath pines taller than spires." "Aye," said another, "and rumor tells that a fair queen lives there with her son, a youth of wondrous strength and beauty. Some call him a sea spirit's child." The third laughed. "Who would believe such tales? Next you'll tell me that squirrels crack golden nuts, or that swans speak with human voice." Guidon smiled within himself, for he knew the truth of all these things. He longed to step forward and say, "That island is mine, and that queen is my mother," but the swan's warning held him back. When the Tsar rose and departed, the prince followed to the shore and called softly upon the wind. Open quote, "O swan, faithful friend, I have seen my father, yet I may not speak. What shall I do?" Close quote. The swan rose once more from the sea spray. "Fear not," said she. "All will come in its hour. Return now to thy mother, and new wonders shall be given thee." The waves lifted the prince's ship and carried him home again. And when he told his mother all that had passed, the Tsaritsa wept, not for grief, but for the stirring of long-lost hope. That night, as moonlight shimmered on the sea, the swan appeared again, radiant and calm. "Thou hast kept faith, O Guidon," she said. "Therefore I will grant thy island greater beauty than before. Rise at dawn and see what heaven bestows." And with a sweep of her wings, she vanished into the stars. Part 3. The Three Wonders of Guidon's Island. When morning broke and the first light kissed the sea, Prince Guidon stepped forth from his dwelling and beheld a sight that took his breath away. During the night, while he and his mother had slept, the face of the island had been transformed. Where once had lain bare sands and forests wild, there now rose a city of gleaming towers, their domes flashing gold in the sunrise. Marble bridges arched across clear canals, fountains sang in courtyards of jasper and silver. Bells chimed softly, though no mortal hand touched them, and streets were filled with people, tall and handsome, clad in garments woven of silk and pearl. Astonished, Guidon cried out, "By what magic is this come to pass?" And from above the waves came the voice of the swan. Open quote, "This city is thy gift, O prince. Rule it wisely and with mercy. It shall be known throughout the seas as the realm of Ledonets, and thou its first sovereign. Its glory will reach even unto thy father's court." Close quote. Then she vanished, leaving a single white feather floating on the tide. Guidon entered the new city with wonder in his heart. The people bowed before him, hailing him as their prince. He found a palace waiting, vast and bright, its walls carved with scenes of the sea and sky. There he brought his mother, who could scarce believe her eyes. From that day forth the island prospered, and Prince Guidon ruled with wisdom learned from hardship and the quiet strength of his heart. The first wonder one evening, merchants from distant lands came to the island. They brought spices, silks, and jewels, marveling at the city's splendor. Guidon welcomed them and feasted them in his hall. As they dined, a golden-furred squirrel leapt upon the table, cracking nuts of shining gold and singing in a tiny clear voice like a harp. The guests stared in awe. "Is this a dream?" one murmured. "Never in all the world have we seen such a creature." Guidon smiled. "This little one is the friend of all who come in peace. The shells of these nuts are pure gold, and within each lies a kernel sweet as honey. Take what you will. There is no end to their number." The merchants filled their purses, giving thanks and blessing his name. And when they sailed away, they carried the tale of the singing squirrel to every shore. At last the story reached the ears of Tsar Saltan himself. As he sat in his hall, his old nurse Babarika and the envious sisters still served him with deceitful smiles. "Your Majesty," said a courtier one day, "strange tidings come from across the sea, of an island where golden nuts fall from trees and squirrels sing at feasts." The Tsar raised his brows. "Would that I might behold such a wonder!" But the elder sister, the royal cook, laughed sharply. "Believe not such fables, sire. Surely those merchants drink too deeply of mead before they speak." And the weaver added, "Aye, it is but childish fancy, an island of marvels indeed." Yet the Tsar sighed. "Still I would like to see it with mine own eyes." When next the merchants sailed again and came to Guidon's port, the prince greeted them kindly and inquired, "What news from the Tsar's realm?" "Good prince," they said, "he has heard of thy squirrel and wishes to behold it." Guidon smiled. "Tell him that his wish shall soon be granted." That evening he went down to the sea and called, open quote, "O swan, wise enchantress, my father desires to see my wondrous squirrel. How may this be?" Close quote. The swan rose shining from the surf. "Go thou once more unseen to his court, that he may hear of thy realm from thine own lips." She touched him with her wing, and once again Guidon was carried by a magic ship across the waves. The second wonder, at Tsar Saltan's palace, new rumors were already afoot. The merchants, returning once more, spoke of the city by the sea, the golden squirrel, and now of a crystal fortress rising above the waters, built by the hand of no man. When Guidon, invisible, entered the hall, he saw his father deep in thought. The Tsar said aloud, "Would that I might look upon this glassy fortress that gleams like morning frost." Godin's heart ached to reveal himself, yet he kept silent. He returned to the sea and called the swan once more. "O fairest friend," said he, "my father wishes to see the fortress of which men speak. How shall it be?" The swan smiled. "Then let him see it in truth." She lifted her wings, and from the deep there rose a palace of pure crystal, delicate as frostwork, strong as diamond. Within its walls shone lamps of pearl and floors of sapphire. Guidon's people rejoiced, for now their island held two wonders, the golden squirrel and the crystal fortress whose light could be seen for leagues. When next the merchants returned to the Tsar's port, they told of this marvel too. Tsar Saltan listened, half smiling, half wistful. "Such wonders do I hear, yet I sit idle. Surely, some day, I shall sail to see this island with my own eyes." But again the jealous sisters mocked. "An old man chasing dreams across the sea? Better stay and feast, my lord, lest the waves swallow you for your folly." The Tsar sighed, but said no more. The third wonder. Not long after, another miracle adorned the island. From the sea's foam, by the swan's will, there arose a maiden of radiant beauty. Her hair shone brighter than gold, her eyes were clear as azure, She was clothed in light, and her smile was gentle as dawn. Guidon, beholding her, felt his heart tremble for the first time. "Who art thou, fair lady?" he asked softly. The maiden bowed. "I am born of the sea and the swan's blessing. If it please thee, I will dwell among thy people." "Please me?" said Guidon, amazed. "Nay, it would make my island paradise complete." So she remained, and in time love blossomed between them. The people rejoiced, for their prince had found his heart's match. When the merchants returned again, they found not only the squirrel in the crystal palace, but also the princess of the sea, fairest of all women. They bowed before her beauty and said, "Never have mortal eyes beheld such grace." Upon their return to Tsar Saltan's court, they spoke of her. The Tsar leaned forward eagerly. "And is there yet more to marvel at?" The merchants answered, "Aye, sire. There lives there a prince noble as the dawn, ruling in wisdom and joy. Beside him stands a maiden fairer than the moon, and all the wonders of the world seem gathered in their isle." Tsar Saltan rose from his throne. "Enough, prepare my ship. I will sail to see this island, whether dream or truth." The sisters paled, but dared not protest. The Tsar's heart was set. Meanwhile, upon the distant island, Guidon felt a stirring in his soul. "Mother," he said, "I feel that the hour is near when truth shall be revealed. My father comes across the sea." The Tsaritsa trembled but smiled. "Then may heaven guide his heart." That night the swan appeared once more. "Prince Guidon," she said, "thy patience is ended. Prepare thy welcome, for the Tsar approaches. At dawn all that was hidden shall be made plain." Part 4. The Reunion and the Tsar's Joy. The morning star still glimmered above the horizon when Prince Guidon stood upon the seashore. A soft wind stirred the banners of his city, and the sound of bells drifted across the brightening waves. The swan had spoken true. Far away upon the line of the sea, sails shone white against the dawn. "The Tsar is coming," said Guidon quietly. He turned to his mother, who stood beside him clad in robes of silver. Her face was pale, yet her eyes were calm. "Whatever fate decrees, my son," she murmured, "we shall meet it with faith." Soon the royal ships dropped anchor near the harbor of Lednetz. Trumpets sounded, and Tsar Saltan himself came ashore. He looked about him in wonder, for never had his eyes beheld a city so fair. The streets gleamed with marble, the air was sweet with music, and people of noble bearing greeted him with honor. Guidon came forward to meet him, bowing low. "Welcome, O mighty Tsar, to our humble island," he said. The Tsar studied him with admiration. "Thou art no humble man," he replied. "Tell me, noble prince, who built this marvel? Whose realm is this that rises from the sea like a dream?" "It is mine, your majesty," answered Guidon. "Yet all I have was given by heaven's grace. Come, I beg thee, and see the wonders of my land." He led the Tsar through shining streets and gardens filled with lilies and roses. They passed beneath arches carved with scenes of waves and stars. They heard the fountains murmur and saw the golden-furred squirrel leap among the trees, cracking its nuts of gold and singing with sweet delight. The Tsar smiled like a child. "Now I believe all tales I have heard," he said. "Truly, God has blessed this island." Then Guidon brought him to the crystal fortress by the shore. The sun fell upon its walls, scattering 1,000 rainbows upon the sea. "This," said the prince, "was raised in a single night by the power of the sea and by the mercy of heaven." The Tsar stood silent in awe. "Never have I seen its equal," he said. "Thy land is rich indeed. Tell me only this, what people rule here? Whence cometh thy house? I would know thy name and lineage." Guidon looked upon him steadily, his heart beating fast. "My name, O Tsar, is Guidon Sanovich." At the sound of that name, the Tsar started. "Saltanovich?" he repeated slowly. "How can that be? I have no son living." Guidon bowed his head. "Thou hadst a wife once, noble Tsar, a gentle queen whom envy wronged. She bore thee a son, yet by false words was cast into the sea. By God's will we were saved, and I am that son." The Tsar grew pale as marble. "It cannot be," he whispered, but Guidon raised his eyes and called, "Mother, come forth and speak." Then from the doorway of the palace came the Tsaritsa. Time had not dimmed her beauty, only lent her face a nobler peace. When Saltan beheld her, he trembled, for memory rushed upon him like a storm, the wedding bells, her gentle voice, the promise of their child. "Is it thou?" he murmured. "My beloved? Living, not lost?" She bowed before him. "It is I, my lord. No monster did I bear, but this noble son whom heaven preserved." The Tsar could no longer stand. He fell to his knees before them both, tears of joy upon his beard. "Forgive me," he said. "I wronged you by believing false words. My soul shall thank heaven till I die for giving me back wife and son." He rose and embraced Guidon, then his queen, and the people of Ledinet shouted for joy. Trumpets sounded, bells rang, and the sea seemed to sparkle brighter than ever before. That same day the Tsar commanded that the wicked sisters and the old nurse should be brought before him. When they arrived, pale and trembling, Sultan's gaze was stern but not cruel. "You plotted against the innocent and cast them to the sea," he said. "Yet mercy shall prevail over vengeance. Live with your shame and know that envy ever devours itself." He turned away, and they were led forth from his sight forever. The Feast of Reunion. For 7 days the city rejoiced. Feasts were laid in every square, musicians played from the towers, fountains ran with wine and mead. The Tsar and Tsaritsa sat side by side, their hands entwined, while Prince Guidon and his beloved sea-born princess stood before them, radiant as the dawn. When the 7th night came, the swan herself appeared above the waters. She circled the palace thrice and descended in a cloud of light. Before all the people she transformed, and where the white bird had been, there now stood a woman crowned with pearls. "Behold," said she, "my enchantment is ended. No longer a swan, I stand free before the friends who broke my chain." Guidon knelt before her. "Lady, who art thou truly?" "I am the Caesar's daughter," she said gently, "and the guardian of this isle. Thy courage released me, therefore I have watched over thee. Now my task is done." The Tsar Saltan rose and bowed to her. "Blessed daughter of the deep, thou hast restored to me all I had lost. May peace abide between our realms forever." The sea princess smiled and vanished into the moonlit surf. The ending thereafter. Tsar Saltan returned no more to his old court upon the mainland, but made his dwelling in the island city where joy and justice reigned. Prince Guidon succeeded him in time, ruling with wisdom beside his fair bride. The golden squirrel still sang in the palace gardens, the crystal fortress shone by the sea, and the bells of Ledinets were heard across the waters for many generations. And thus the wronged Tsaritsa was vindicated, the faithful swan released, and peace restored to the hearts of all. From that day forth, sailors who passed the island would tell the tale to their children, how truth outlives deceit and how mercy is stronger than the sea. And so ends the tale of Tsar Saltan, of love lost and found, of wonder, faith, and the justice of heaven.